My guests today are filmmaker Jeffrey D. Brown and actress Susmita Mukherjee. We talked to them about their new film, Sold. This is a film about human trafficking and is based on a novel by the same name by Patricia McCormick. The film is told from the perspective of a 13-year-old Nepali teenager who is sold to a brothel in Calcutta, India. Welcome to San Francisco.
Thank you. It's good to be here in Kamala.
Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to be here.
Sold is such a powerful title. It makes you think. When was the first time you read the novel?
I read the novel in one sitting. There was a New York Times Sunday review. I bought it that Sunday. I read it Monday, optioned it Tuesday. The book slayed me. I call it a prayer song poem. And it very much puts you in the shoes of a young girl who's 13 years old, named Lakshmi. And 13, by the way, is the global average age of all trafficked children. Whether you're in India, the U.S., that's the average age, which means there are children much younger as well.
So what was it about the book that drew you in and prompted you to option within 48 hours?
My father is a pediatric epidemiologist, and he worked for CARE, Save the Children, UNESCO. And I had been looking for a book on sex trafficking. We were actually going to do an original story on sex trafficking that took place in China and the Bay Area, which is where I live. And then when I saw this book, and read it. I love India and I love Nepal, and my stepfather is Bengali, and so I've had this long love connection with India. And I saw the book. As I read it, I saw the movie. So it was an immediate instinctual reaction. I was deeply moved, laughing and crying reading the book. And a friend rang the doorbell in the middle of the process, and I was all teary-eyed when I opened the door. And she is a teacher friend who has taught both of our kids. And she had just come back from India and Nepal doing art with trafficked children. And so she said, "Why are you teary-eyed?" And I told her, and then she burst into tears and told me about these children she'd been working with. And I just felt like this is a sign, this is meant to be. And what happened to me was I had watched a film called Born into Brothels. And the Shakti of those kids, the tenacity, resilience, creativity of these young children whose mothers were all sex workers in Sonagachi, deeply affected me. And so from that point on, I had been looking for something to do with sex trafficking of children to help shed light on this issue. And then when the book came out, it was just, this is it.
And you mentioned your stepfather was Bengali. Is that the reason you got Susmita in the project?
Well, the reason we got Susmita was she is amazing. She auditioned for this film, which she never does. She'd never auditioned in her life because she's so well known. But I didn't know her, and I don't watch television in India. And when I saw her audition, I was just simply blown away. And I called her within a day, and I said, "Do you have the part?" And she said, "No, really?" She didn't believe me at first, right?
Right. Oh, for me it was, as Jeffrey said, my age people don't audition. People know. So I didn't really have the concept of an audition. So I got the script and I prepared it. I prepared it really nicely. I mean, I rehearsed it and I showed it to my husband also. I said, "Am I doing it right?" I got the pan and I got everything, all the properties. I got my hairdresser, and it's a proper performance. So I walked in and I'm like, I thought that's the way it's supposed to be. There's a performance, there are people. So they said, "Start," and I said, "Start where? Who? Start. Where's the camera?" The little thing there. I said, "Oh, is that it?" And so for a moment, I said, "Oh, 1 second." So it was quite a strange feeling for me because it's a little tiny camera. People were coming and going. Some artists had come before me. Some were leaving. And here was I in full regalia with my hairdresser and doing my thing. Where's my property? And, but I just did it fully because my husband, who's also a director, he said, "Will you leave something for your director? You're not supposed to, because I had no concept that it was just, to show my director that do I look the part or can I do it?" So I had gone into amazing details, which probably Jeffrey just threw and said, "No, I don't want that."
I loved it. It was amazing.
So, but the funny thing is, Jeffrey, that for me, it was a very, very, like for you, the serendipity, the spiritual part. I don't know how to put this, but it strangely felt that it didn't matter whether I got the role or I didn't get the role. It wasn't about me getting a role. I was already in some other zone. I was already, as if I'd already gone there. So I had no feeling of anxiety of getting it or not getting it. It was like something which, through my persona or through Mumtaz, there's a contribution to the film, to the process of the mission, which I now see in hindsight and I say, the passion with which we've all been through the process started at that point as a seed point.
So you play the role of Mumtaz, the madam of Happy House, which is Happiness House, which is where these young teenagers are brought in and you pay for them and they come from different parts of India and Nepal. And then you treat them as sex slaves.
We made a choice to make Mumtaz a Hindu worshipper of Kali Ma. And most of the brothel madams also worship Kali Ma, especially in Calcutta. And yet this name, Mumtaz, is a very famous name that's not really Hindu. But what you have to understand is everyone that comes to a brothel is given a name that's not theirs. So their identity is erased often. And sometimes it's just a number. So I kind of took it in that light. And when
he had spoken about it, and exactly that's what Jeffrey did. He just said that it's a name, it's nameless, and a kind of persona. Could be any religion. I remember that.
But I have to say, when you auditioned, when Susmita did this audition, what was so powerful about it was, here is this tyrant who is also funny, who's also, her mood switches all the time. She's mercurial, and she has this depth of anger and sadness that sort of is part of her because she herself was trafficked. And you could see all of that in the simple audition. It was like she was her. It wasn't like she was acting her. She was her. And there was no one, and we had many, many well-known actresses that auditioned. There was no one that embodied her so fully. So it was the first time I've ever cast anyone from a videotape. It was instant.
Kitty. For many people, she's still known as Kitty, who acted in Karamchand. And she went to the National School of Drama. Yeah. And maybe that's what prompted her to come to this audition in this full-blown format, which you probably weren't used to.
We were very fortunate in meeting a woman named Tess Joseph in Mumbai, who was our casting person, who is also Bengali. And I told her this film is set in Sonagachi, so a lot of the actresses that came were Bengali. And I told her I knew of National School of Drama, and I said, we really want to see mostly National School of Drama actors because that lineage it's such a hard school to get into. If you get into it and are trained there, you almost all of these actors are absolutely consummate actors. And
Seema Biswas, one of them.
Yeah,
so she's also my junior. She's 1 year junior to me.
And Kurvi Kal is also a National School of Drama.
Inspector.
Yeah, no, the bad guy.
The customer.
Yeah.
The one who gets hit.
Right.
Yeah.
He was in Slumdog Millionaire. He was the bad guy in Slumdog Millionaire also.
So the film is about human trafficking, like we said. What have you achieved after making the film? What was the goal of making this film? But what did you want to do once the film was made?
So the goal from the onset was to create a clarion cry to bring the world attention to this issue, to bring communities to address it wherever they live, to bring resources, to shine a light on this darkness. And when I optioned the book, we really didn't know how the extent of how many children and women are trafficked every year. ECPAT says 1.8 million children are trafficked every year into sexual slavery alone.
That seems low.
It is low. I believe it's much higher. I agree with you, but that's still a huge number of people. When you think of it, 1.8 million. Ruchira Gupta, who is one of our advisors and the founder of APNIAP, believes that almost 1 million girls are trafficked within India every year. I think that's much closer to the truth. And if that's true about India, then, it's true about many other countries also. Like when you look at the numbers of the U.S., 800,000 children disappear every year, but they say only 100 are trafficked into sexual slavery. I believe it's, and sometimes NGOs say 1 to 300, but the fact is 800,000 disappear every year, and so why aren't these numbers getting out there more? Well, it's very hard to know the exact numbers is very difficult, because who is trafficked? The vulnerable are trafficked, the ones that don't have a passport, the ones that are born in a village that don't necessarily even have documentation, or in the U.S. it's often foster kids. It's the children who have no parent advocate. Those are the ones who are preyed on and exploited in this way. So the goal from the beginning was to create a film that could bring a great deal of resources into this issue, both human resources and funds. And so we partnered our film with many international and regional organizations, both in India, Nepal, and the U.S. Organizations like Save the Children, World Vision, Apniap, in Nepal, Shakti Shamua. So there's little organizations that are survivor safe houses who are rehabilitating young women and rescuing them. And then there are bigger organizations that are educating children and protecting through awareness and education. So we're really on a mission with this film to bring world attention to this issue. And we've partnered with something that allows anyone in the U.S. to bring this film to their city, so that you can, if you go to our website, soldthemovie.com, and you go to screenings, you'll see we're in 40, 50 cities. But if we're not in your city, or if you want to create a dedicated fundraiser using our film to raise funds for an organization you believe in, and we have many partner organizations which are listed on our website. We also have created our own fund, which will be dedicated to primarily the vocational training of survivors and the healing of survivors, because a lot of survivors have PTSD because they're so brutalized. So we're bringing Yoga Nidra to heal the survivors, and we're working with this group called Build a Nest to bring vocational training. All the NGOs have vocational training, but it's fairly minimal, and we want to help that expand, so that if you have been trafficked and you cannot go home back to your family, you will learn a livelihood that can really sustain you. That's the goal. And we also believe that when you are a victim of human trafficking, you can make a journey from victim to advocate, to passionate leader, in fact. A lot of the people that we met at the NGOs had been trafficked and were now leaders and rescuers of other girls and women. And so we feel like the change will come from empowering survivors, and that's a critical and important part of this. So SOLD is on a mission to end human trafficking, especially child trafficking, and we need everybody's help. We want people to bring this movie to their community. For instance, we're partnered with the Art of Living and their Care for Children initiative. So they have 425 schools all over India. They have created one boarding facility for the children of sex workers to get them out of the brothels. It's called Project Udan. And we want to create 10 more. And I drove down to LA to meet the leadership, and they're very excited about working with us. So they're going to use SOLD to raise millions of dollars to build 10 more of these organizations, which are safe havens where children of sex workers will live all the way through high school, and then they will help them get into college. And this is how change will happen, incrementally, bit by bit. But we are we want to really support the communities on the ground that are doing the work, because the front lines of the issue are very intense, and there are many incredible people like Ruchira Gupta, like Urmi Basu, founder of New Light, Ruchira, founder of Apniap. These women are completely dedicated to helping children get out, helping young women and women get out of this industry if they want to. Ruchira, in fact, describes it as lack of choice. Sometimes it's a course of kidnapping, but sometimes it's simply poverty and lack of choice. And really, at the base of all of it is inequality, whether it's Dalit or a woman as opposed to a man. It's always the exploitation of the other. That's at the root of all slavery and always has been. And so this is what really has to change. We need to bring our hearts and our compassion to this issue so that we can gradually shift it and create a just world.
So that was a very passionate response on the goal that you're trying to achieve with Sold. And Susmita, you yourself are involved in some NGO activities, but how has this film changed you? What kind of awareness has it created? Because your husband's family is from Bundelkhand, and there are the Brigade of Pink Sari women who fight for their rights. So I'm wondering if it has awakened your NGO streak again.
I have been raised in Delhi in a very convent-educated background, and when I first went to Bundelkhand, that was about 25 years ago, it was really a big culture shock for me. Apart from the fact that I had to, cover my head, I still do, Jeffrey. If you see me as a Bundelkhand, when I go to my in-laws, I cover my head because I think that by doing that, if I give them the respect of their culture that they want, then they accept me the way I am. They see me in movies wearing short clothes; they don't mind. So there is or smoking or something, So I don't think that the fight is at that level. The fight is something deeper when they are with you in what you want to do. And to me, it was very important to be the change that you want to see. So, in fact, my niece, Raja's, my husband's younger brother's younger daughter, she studied with me in Bombay. Now, today, she's the pradhan of the village. And so we went and we did all the elections for her. And so she's an educated lady who's, she left her work. And she's garnering a lot of young women because she's single and she's 40 now. And she studied in Mumbai. So she was able to bring back that education back into the village. And she's the first woman who's got electricity, what my husband couldn't do. Because evidently that whole village is not on the map. For some strange reason, it has disappeared from the voters list. So she's got light in the village. Imagine in 21st century, you don't have light in Bundelkhand. People eat grass rotis. So there's a lot of work to be done, and my NGO, Rudrani Kalagram, is more about the arts, and how as an artist I feel that if you can instill respect in the woman's heart, then she will create girl child. She will create, like if you have women in the forefront, there won't be wars. It's a known fact. But to be able to give them Bundelkhand the passion, they have got low self-esteem. They feel that they don't know English, they are not educated. So they can be that, like what Jeff was saying, the Dalit. They're not empowered. So what can you give them? How do you give them path? Through culture. So that's how I was able to, it's a very small, very small attempt. And to answer your question about how this movie has changed me, because yes, it started as a role. And then with the research, when I went to Sonagachi and I saw the way things were happening, my mind changed a lot.
How did your mind change a lot? Sonagachi is the red light district of Calcutta.
Just prior to being cast, I think I went to Kolkata, and Jeffrey and Jane put me in touch with Apne Aap and the people because you can't walk into Sonagachi. You have to be taken there by the NGOs. But being a Bengali helped, and the questions I asked, and the small changes I think I would like to share with you, is that when I went to one of these rooms, there was this lady sitting on the high beds and the children under the floor, under the beds with the cooking under it, and her entire grocery and her entire kitchen is under the bed. So that we've seen it in the film that the children and the kitchen are under it's a high bed, and the activity, the professional activities are happening on the bed. So I jumped onto the bed, and they were eating cucumbers, from the road, and they were very brownish, and somehow I felt so sorry for myself because I couldn't eat it. I felt sorry for myself. What is it that you go into your own darkness? Because I couldn't eat it. I couldn't touch that thing. It was so. The whole room was smelling of sex, and it was like, and I wish I was soft and good-hearted enough to eat it with them, but I couldn't. It was horrible for me. And then there was this young girl who kept coming in, and she kept giggling, and there was this person behind, one thin, horrible-looking chap who kept trying to grab her, and she was here sort of in camera. She thought that I was kind of questioning her. So here is this older woman talking to me on the bed, and I'm sitting in the bed with this cucumber in between, with the kids under it. And there's this other girl who kept coming in, and she kept saying, there was one, I'm sorry, can I do that? Yeah. There was this very loaferish looking man who kept trying to grab her chest. So and she kept saying, go away. And then finally I said, who is it? So she said, customer. It's a customer, which I wanted to use in the film. I think I have at some point, that customer. And I don't know, that stupid customer. Who are you? You're from Mumbai. You're from Tumi Bangali. She was more interested in my life. And the way she was just being, she'll come back later. Give me $10. The normalcy of that whole thing, with me sitting like a diva on the bed, not being able to eat the cucumber. And the whole activity of sex being... I've never been to a brothel before. I've never needed to go to a brothel before, So I've never seen a brothel before. So it was like the whole movie was a journey into myself, into the darkness. I'm nowhere am I Mumtaz. I mean, obviously, I'm not selling little children for a living. So to go into that role was... it was a tearing, it was rending. I feel every time I look at myself, I can't, Jeffrey, that woman smells. Even the other day when I saw it, and there was I trying to put the bra strap down and, being totally naked physically, that, I was just being open and brazen and, it was very painful. It's very painful because you are so part of a restricted Bundelkhand, Samaj, husband, you're a bahu, you're a wife, you're a mother, So the pull of the actor, the actor, the role, the situation. So it's a very painful and dark journey within yourself to be able to justify your producer director giving you this part. You can't leave any stones unturned. It's not a comics TV thing you're doing one-off, you come, you're not involved. I mean, you're not deeply tearing at yourself to do that. This is a greater responsibility because there's a mission behind it.
So Susmita, you actually did a fantastic role because I hated you in the film in that yellow sari, with that small blouse, and you just exuded power actually. You exuded power. So you did a very good job. And looking at your research, I can now understand how you got that, how you bottled that essence. So my final question, because we're running out of time, is two things surprised me. First, the film was in English. So that surprised me. Second was the Bollywood element. And I won't go, but I read that apparently you were influenced by that famous film that was shot in Calcutta with Vidya Balan as the actress. Kahani. Apparently, you were influenced by Kahani to some extent, and that's why you had that Durga Puja scene there. So tell us about the Bollywood element in the film. And you can see that playing those Bollywood songs is a high point for these young girls.
We all did a lot of research, including myself. I spent a day in a brothel interviewing the young women that were working there, and what happens is you really understand how important Bollywood is in people's lives who have nothing, because it's a dream fantasy. And in fact, the customers who come are in this Bollywood fantasy. So Bollywood is, there are gods and goddesses on the walls, and also Bollywood stars everywhere in all the brothels that we went in to visit and look at for art direction or we're interviewing. And so I really understood this is the sort of fantasy element and the dream of escape that everyone is part of, from the customers to the women. And the women, there's a scene where we have Salim and Suleiman, the merchant brothers, they created a song called Namaste, and the women are dancing on the rooftop. And it's a really, they're breaking free for a moment in this place. And to me, it's one of the sort of high points emotionally, and then it's all shut down again. But this yearning for freedom, this yearning for expansion, for connection, and then this, arduous enslavement that occurs. It's all part of the actual reality. We've made this film so that people can use this film as a fundraising tool. We also even have a PG-13 version. We want people to bring this film to their community, use this film to create awareness, but also to raise funds for all the deserving NGOs that are on the front lines of this issue.
I wish I had more time, but we've just been told that we need to wrap up. So thank you so much for talking to us. A lot of questions still.
Address this. Thank you so much for having us on the show.
Thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you.
I wish we had more time.
Yeah.
If you missed any of our shows, you can catch them on our YouTube channel. We'll be back again with another edition next week. Until then, goodbye.